What's up, guys? Welcome to the first week of the SRL Power Rankings. I'm Coach Braves, coach of the Nashville Needle Kings, and I'm here with Coach Aboot of the Faldor Flapples. Go ahead and say hi.
Hey there, SRL. Glad to be along for the Power Rankings.
Yep, so we did this all last year, and we had a good time with it. This year we're going to be putting videos out for the league channel every Thursday. So, yeah, these are our first crack at it post-draft. So we decided to do it a little bit different for the first week than we did last year. Since last year we were brand new to the league, didn't know any of the coaches or anything, we went solely off the team they drafted, how well they did with their draft, and went off that. This year we decided to take into effect how they did last season. Now that we know the coaches, try to judge based on their performance last year. So we took those two things into effect, the draft and their performance last year, and gave them all a point total, and then ranked them based on that point total. So that's kind of how we did it this year. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, these are opinion-based. Most of the teams were very even. It was very, very hard to actually pick like bottom teams and top teams. Very balanced league. So these are all opinions. So don't be offended if you're one of the lower ones. Somebody's got to be at the bottom. And for those new coaches, you guys didn't have the benefit of being in the league last year. So you guys are kind of just closer to the bottom because of that. So we can see you guys climbing very early on with some good performances early in the season. So with all that said, let's get to it. First up, we have number 16 here. We have the Immunity Idols. We did put them at 16. Again, this is one of our new coaches. We gave overall score, and for this team, it was a 19. And with that, we predicted that they missed the playoffs. Again, we could be very wrong about all this, but this was our opinion. And Coach Aboot's going to tell you a little bit about the roster.
The pick of the draft for this team, the Immunity Idols, I gave to Roserade. In my opinion, it was one of the higher performing C tiers with a lot of potential, very high special attack and access to good utility, classic poison grass typing, always good. One thing I noticed about this team, the Gmax Cinderace doesn't have as much potential as the normal Cinderace because it doesn't have access to Libero. So at first glance it seems strong, but the Libero ban really does affect it a little bit. The offensive potential is there with Starmie and Komao. Nothing too overwhelming, but definitely solid bulk around this team and good utility, no overall glaring weaknesses.
All right, so that's what we got to say about the Immunity Idols. Moving on to number 15. And we have the Celadon City Porygons. We do have them ranked at 15 with an overall score of 22. Again, this would also have this team missing the playoffs. And Coach Boot, go into the roster.
The Porygons top pick I gave to Terrakion. He's a very powerful physical attacker, really good coverage. Not every team should be built to handle it completely. They won't have an easy time at least, that's for sure. This team has some middling speed tiers, very powerful physical attackers, a little less oppressive on the special side. And as a side note, there's not really any sun support for that Leafeon, so if you ever feel like trading it, just remember that's an option.
For those of you that don't know, Coach Boot already offered him a trade for Leafeon and got shot down. So that's where that comes from. All right, but that's all about the Porygons. Moving on to number 14, we have the Rally Goons. We do have them at 14 with an overall score of 25, and again, this would have them missing the playoffs as well.
Rillaboom is the pick of the draft for this team. A very solid S tier in my opinion, with new access to grassy terrain. Depending how he uses that with the rest of his team, it could help him out very well. This team has access to webs, solid bulk, and the typings offensively are very balanced.
All right, moving on to number 13, we have the Lavender Town Gengars with an overall score of 31, and another one of the teams we have missing the playoffs.
This team, the Gengars, the pick of the draft is going to go to Inteleon. It's a very fast Pokemon, has a little weak coverage with water and ice being its only real options, but it does have access to screens, which could help out in a lot of battles. Gmax Corviknight is definitely no joke. This team has a lot of bulk between that and Amoonguss and Mudsdale. So very good coverage on this team, good utility, access to webs, and other forms of speed control.
All right, on to number 12 here. We have the Wedgehurst Rillabooms. Sorry if I'm saying any team names wrong. I'm sorry, I don't know what Wedgehurst is. Hopefully I'm saying it right, though. We do have them at number 12 with an overall score of 32. And again, this would be another team that we have missing the playoffs as of right now.
The pick of the draft for the Rillaboom, I had to give to Dragapult. It's a tried and true heavy hitter, a lot of options on the physical and special side. Venusaur is a pretty high up pick on this team's list, but it does miss out by not having a Sunsetter. There's a little bit of stacking with the typings on this team. Some very fast Mons and access to Tailwind, and also some slower Mons with access to Trick Room. So a lot of different options for this team.
All right, on to number 11. We actually have the lowest ranked of our playoff teams from last year. So sorry to the New York Nickets, but we do have them coming in at 11 with an overall score of 40. And I believe this would be our last team that we have missing the playoffs. So the closest playoff-bound team that won't quite make it according to our rankings so far.
The Nickets pick of the draft will go to Excadrill. It's a premier lead in the league, so that should make the beginnings of his battles a little easy going forward. It's a very powerful Mon, and he does have access to Sand with Gigalith. His team isn't super fast outside of that, though, and he does have some slower Mons and no access, as far as I can tell, to Trick Room, so that could be something he could look for going forward.
All right, so on to number 10, and we actually have Coach Aboot and the Falador Flapples here. We gave him an overall score of 49, and he would be our last team into the playoffs with a making it into the first round, but then being knocked out there. And I'm going to talk about his team since I don't know if it's really fair for him to talk about his own team as much. So his pick of the draft had to give it to G-Max Charizard. He was the MVP of the season, or of the league last year, or last season. So I don't know how I can give it to anyone other than that. He does have Torkoal to help set up the Sun for it, and then also Tangrowth to make a nice little Sun team. Outside of that, I don't know what else to say about the team, because if you hear him outside of this video, he's trying to trade away half his team right now. So I don't know who else to talk about other than that Sun core he has. And I know he's looking for answers to deal with Chanseys and Blissies from our practice matches that we've done
Definitely
together.
a work in progress.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's all we're going to say about his team. He comes in at number 10. Moving into number 9, we have the Fargo Phalanx. Overall score 55. And also a team we have making the playoffs but losing in the first round. This is also Coach Aboot's Week 1 opponent. So he's done plenty of research into this team. So go ahead and talk about that.
His pick of the draft, he had to do it, and he went and drafted Chansey. And man, this thing is annoying, let me tell you. It's definitely going to be the core of his defense on his team, and it's going to be tough to get around for certain teams that don't have an answer. This team has access to screens, hazards, tailwind, and a lot of offensive threats with really good typings and coverages. Overall, a very solid team.
And how do you feel about your Week 1 match going up against him?
I'll let you know after the match.
All right, good answer. All right, moving on to number 8. We have the St. Louis Swablues with an overall score of 58, and another one of those teams making the playoffs but losing in the first round.
For this team, I went ahead and gave Ninetales as the pick of the draft. It's a very solid threat on its own, good speed and special attack, and it also provides Sun for G-Max Venusaur, and I think that's going to be a very powerful combination that he's looking to bring a lot of weeks. He has very powerful attackers, including Kyurem and Venusaur, and it's going to be tough to deal with those two, depending on what your defensive core of your team is.
All right, so that is St. Louis Swablues. I believe the highest ranked of our 4 either new coaches or coaches that were replacements last season. He did take a team that was very unsuccessful when he took over into the playoffs, so we had to reward him for that and put him up at number 8. Number 7 is myself, overall score 61. Making it to the second round of the playoffs because we actually, according to our rankings, have me in the weaker of the 2 divisions overall. So first of the second round teams being knocked out. And again, Coach Aboot's going to talk about my team a little bit.
For this team, Togekiss will be the pick of the draft. It's very annoying to deal with depending on the situation. Air slashes, crit chance, a lot of different options. All very annoying. The rest of this team is very, very bulky. We have Blissey and Clef. It's going to be tough to get through this core, and he does have a lot of powerful fairies, so he's definitely pretty well stacked against dragons.
All right, that is me coming in at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we have the Gallagher Ninjas, overall score 67. And this would be the first of our teams making it to the semifinals and losing in the semifinals. And his roster goes something like this.
Shibby's doing his best to do a real-life impersonation of Surge this season. I gave his pick of the draft to Pinkerton. Providing the electric terrain enables a lot of his electric types. He has Alolan Raichu with that extra speed, Toxtricity, and Zero Aura, which is a major threat on its own. This team is, however, a little soft on defense.
Yeah, and those electric terrain teams always scare me a little bit, and he did do a good job of putting together a very good electric terrain core. All right, so moving on to our top 5 now. At number 5, we have the Arcanines. And again, just because of the division he's in, he actually, according to these rankings, loses in the first round, but still makes the top 5 with an overall score of 70.
The pick of the draft for the Arcanines is going to be Urshifu Single Strike. I haven't really seen this mon in action very often, but I am excited to see its mega powerful crits and how threatening it'll be on offense. It's a very powerful roster all the way down through the C tier. There's no real drop-off there and no glaring weaknesses.
All right, so again, that is the first of your top 5. Moving on to number 4, we have the commissioner himself, Manny, in the Stark Mountain Giratinas. Overall score 76, and being one of those second-round playoff teams that loses there in the second round.
I'm giving the Giratinas pick of the draft to the S tier Cinderace with access to Libero this season. I'm very excited to see how that plays out and to see how Manny will oversee the continuation of his Fire Nation domination off the back of his Charizard performances last season.
He did have the MVP G-Max Charizard last season and probably has the new best fire type in the game. So yeah, let's see how he does with that.
And also in addition to that, he does have a lot of synergy here that I do like with the G-Max Snorlax and Hatterene. It could be a very powerful Trick Room option.
All right, moving on to our top 3 now. Coming in at number 3, we have the reigning runner-up here with the Dragonites. With an overall score of 88, and we have them being the other team that makes it to the semifinals but gets knocked out in the semifinals.
And much like last season, the Dragonites are the Water Gym leader return. He has a whopping 5 water types, including Urshifu Rapid Strike, and I'm very interested to see how that stacks up against Single Strike. It'll be an interesting thing to look out for this season. That being said, I will definitely not be doubting this coach considering his performance last season.
Yeah, this was probably the team we were most wrong about last season. We had him ranked very low early on, and we did mention his abundance of water types last year. His draft this year looks very similar, but this year we're not going to rank him that low because he proved us wrong last year. So all that said, moving on to number 2. We have the Hydreigons at number 2 with an overall score of 91. And with our rankings, we have him predicted finishing the runner-up this upcoming season.
The pick of the draft for the Hydreigons is going to go to Volcarona. I'm really excited to see the setup sweeping potential this mon has and to see how many games it wins on its own. In addition to that, his team is pretty well balanced, really good typings, very high speed, very powerful, and not too exploitable. No real weaknesses there.
All right. And like you said, that pick of the draft, Volcarona, it's one of those mons that's just really strong. You pretty much know exactly what it's going to do, but it's just see if you can stop it. And most people probably can't. All right, that being said, moving on to number 1, and we couldn't put anyone there other than the reigning champ, Sen himself. We have predicted as a repeat champion. We can't say anything else until somebody proves us wrong. So he's going to be at number 1 with an overall score of a perfect 100. And go ahead and talk about his draft this year.
The pick of the draft for the champ is going to go to Scizor. This fan favorite returns with the new DLC, and I'm really excited to see the creative sets Sen can come up with and see what he does with Scizor. His team is very diversified, very scary offense. He does have a little less focus this season on bulk, but the pieces are definitely there to put up a solid match each and every week.
Yep, Scizor is definitely my favorite of the returning mons. Just an awesome mon. Excited to see it back in the league. All that being said, those are our power rankings for the pre-week 1, the preseason basically. Again, these are all opinion-based. It was very, very tough to go through these and decide where we wanted to rank everybody. So hopefully no one gets offended too much. And like we said, like with the Dragonites and Coach Darkspark, we had him ranked extremely low last year. He proved us wrong. We continued to move him up. And so if you were ranked low and you disagree, prove us wrong. We'll move you up. We are as unbiased as can be. So all that being said, thanks for watching. Coach Aboot, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, of course, man.
All right, and we look forward to doing these in the weeks to come.
Yep.
Have a good one.
See you next week.